2017 to order. We do have a quorum. Let's please stand and pledge to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All individuals are asked to either silence or turn off cell phones, pages, or other electronic devices that may disrupt the meeting. Approval of the agenda. Approve the agenda as posted in accordance with the open meeting law, and here on place all agenda items on the table for discussion. What's the wish of the council?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Got a motion by Councilmember Gushik, second by Alderman Hercock to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the minutes. A copy of the minutes for the special work session meeting of September 5th, 2017, and the regular city council meeting of September 5th, 2017 are enclosed. What's the wish of the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Knopfler, second by Councilmember Liljegren to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the bills, checks number 97122 through 97221 totaling $225,778.94. What's the wish of the council?
Motion to approve.
Second. I got a motion by Mayor Zilka, second by Councilmember Hanson to approve the bills. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Awards, donations, presentations, proclamations. Presentation, Police Department, 2016 Annual Report. Chief?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I have before you the 2016 annual report for the police department. I will go over some of the highlights. There's a lot of information there, and I'll give you the highlights, and if you want to do some in-depth reading, it's there. But in 2016, we handled 8,353 calls for service compared to 8,059 calls in 2015. The overall crime rate in 2016 was 5,494. The crime rate in 2015 was 6,802. So the rate has decreased, and it's been on a steady decrease. It's still pretty constant if you look over the past few years. It's on a downward trajectory, but it's still pretty constant. The Part 1 and Part 2 crimes cleared by arrest in 2016 was 73%, and later in the report I also included a chart with other comparable cities with their clearance rate and some comparable information. So I will go to, let me see here. Just as far as the crime rate is concerned, this is on page 6 of my report, not of the council report. So when you look at the crime rate, it's the index crimes, which are your Part 2 and Part 1 crimes, and then they're divided by the population, by 10,000, or by the population, and then divided, what do I got here? Divided by the population, then multiplied by 100,000, that gives you the crime rate for the city itself. So if you go back to page 18 of the report, I've got a chart, and it gives you the initial crime reports by year for the city of Little Falls. If you kind of look, our calls for service are going up, and that's been pretty consistent. One of the big changes in 2009 is when we went to the new records management system, so you'll see a spike, a large spike in our calls for service there because it changed how we were documenting our calls. But since that's happened, we've still had a constant upswing in our calls for service. So we're at 8,353 calls as of 2016. On page 19, the next page, the crime rate for the city of Little Falls. The first year I have on here, it was 11,820, and it's been on a pretty constant downward trajectory, and for this year it's 5,493 for 2016. Basically what that means is the Part 1 and Part 2 crimes are down. The major crimes are down, but our overall calls for service are up. On
What do you
page,
attribute that to?
we do a lot of medicals, a lot of informational type stuff. We do a lot of civil stuff, so we do, I mean, we're constantly going on calls, but they're not necessarily always major crimes. So, and they involve time. I mean, if we go on a civil standby where someone exchanges property, it's time consuming because we'll sit and, a lot of times we have to mediate that and, help them retrieve their property or whatever it happens to be. And so informational, we do a lot of informational documentation type stuff. Someone will call, it might not be a crime, but they want it reported, that type of thing. And then medicals, we do a lot of medicals and that type of stuff, so.
Greg, I know it's not all documented in the record, but, you hear people around town saying, oh gosh, we have so much drugs and so much crime, and, you and I have talked about it's not unlike any other community around. But I think what's ironic is I just am a fervent reader of the record, and to look at the crimes, and once again, this last week, it seems like if there was 10 of them, 9 of them were from out of Morrison County even.
Yep.
The perpetrators
Right.
that were just happened to be stopped here. So I think just because it happens here, or they're arrested here or stopped here, doesn't mean that.
Every community has these problems, but I think, I don't know what the reason is. There's a perception that the crime is out of control or the drugs are out of control. We do have, there are concerns and we work to address those concerns, but as you can see statistically, the major crimes are down.
Right.
So, and I'm not going to make light of that. I mean, we still have to stay on top of this and, work hard to keep our community safe, but I think it's safer than what most people think.
Well, I think we have a great police department. I think you guys all do a great job, and thank you and to all your officers for what you do, because we know it's not an easy job, and times are different than they were 5-10 years ago. So
Well,
it hasn't gotten any easier.
Just a sideline here. I think maybe the calls for assistance could be up because the residents feel comfortable contacting the police because they know that they're going to be there for them. So they're more apt to call for assistance or to talk to you rather than be afraid of you.
Correct.
Because the
That-
police are our friends.
And that's one of our mission, our goals and part of our mission statement. I mean, that's what we're here. We're here for service. I mean, we're here to help people, and, the more we can invest in the community, the more we get back from the community. So I'm proud of my staff. They do an amazing job. They work really well with the community, and most of them are from Little Falls, so they put their heart and soul in this. They raise their kids here. Their parents live here. Their families live here. They want this community to be safe, and they want to be proud of it.
Well, I've seen a couple of nice things on Facebook. One where I think it was West got on a busload of kids and he was speaking to them and handed out badges, and that stuff like that is powerful. And I think Hiren, gave some kids something for a Dairy Queen or something for wearing their helmets or whatever it was. And at the Kids Day, the fire and police are all visible, and Sheriff's Department. And I think Raquel's right. I think that the impression that never happened, I wasn't a bad boy, but I was always afraid of the police when I was young because I always thought that I was going to get arrested for something, so
I think Officer Stump and now Officer Koppas up at the school made a big difference, too.
Yeah.
I think that's invaluable, the school resource officer position. They do a fantastic job, and they really do a lot of positive things with the schools.
Yeah.
So,
I think, I agree with Greg. A lot of other communities, they read our paper, they see all these arrests, which actually means you're doing your job, but they look at it as, boy, this town must be overflowed with drugs. Well, we catch a lot of the perpetrators, and they're not from here. And a lot of times, we don't build up our officers, like when Officer Hiren went out and saved the dog. He could let that dog go under the water and stuff, but to him it was important to save that person's dog and to bring it in, and it meant a lot to him, so he went out there and did it. And we need to hear more of that stuff, that they're actually out there doing stuff for the community that are positive, and quit looking at this negative stuff all the time.
most of them like to do their jobs quietly. They don't want the pat on the back, they just want to go do it. But at times, they do need that pat on the back and that encouragement, so, because they do a good job.
They do.
sorry, I interrupted your report.
That's fine, that's what I want. The next page, 21, just gives you some statistical and comparison data, different crime rates and different clearance rates from other counties around, or cities and counties around the state, comparable to Little Falls. And then the last part of the report, starting on 22, is the statistical, that's the actual statistical data that is inputted into the computer system, and then that's how all this data is retrieved back for the report. And it just goes through, I'll give you an example, a couple of that I highlighted. On page 26 of the report, warning and faulty equipment citations, 1,201 stops where our guys have stopped people, and instead of writing them a ticket, gave them a warning for speed or whatever it happened to be. And that goes a long ways too. You build up that PR and you make a positive contact with the community. That we do issue citations, but there are times when we just need to have that personal contact with someone too. So, page 27, sick and cared for, 703. That would just be medicals where we respond with the ambulance. And that doesn't count mental illness. Page 28, vehicle lockouts, 376. We started that in 2010. And we get a lot of calls. Sometimes we'll get 2, 3, 4 calls a day with people locking their keys in the car. So I've done it myself, so I've used the service too.
So have I.
So am I.
Then suspicion, someone calls and just says something suspicious is going on in my neighborhood. 568 calls, and just to give you an idea, we've assisted the Morrison County Sheriff's Office 249 times, but that doesn't count other law enforcement agencies that we assist also. And I'm not sure where I see that here, it's in here somewhere else, but just as an example where we use mutual aid. Other agencies, 175, so. But we partner strong with the Sheriff's Office. They help us a lot, and we help them a lot when they need, so. That's basically all I'll go over, unless you have any other specific.
Thank you for your take-back box that's in the lobby, because people come ask me at work, here, take these. No, I can't, but you need to take them. It's great to have it there to be able to send people to.
It's amazing how much we take back. The way.
Is
And
there
then we
another
partner with the Sheriff's Office, Piers and Randall. So when we dispose of those pills, we partner, so they collect in Randall, Piers, the county, us, and then we put it all in one receptacle, and then we split the cost 4 ways to dispose of those pills. So it's been a good partnership throughout the community to do that.
People appreciate that. I don't know if they talk to anybody when they come in, but there's another one coming up later on, I think.
At the store.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What's the wish of the council on the police department annual report?
I make a motion to accept it.
Second?
Got a motion by Councilmember Gushik, second by Councilmember Lundberg. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The consent agenda, Animal Control Report, August 2017 receive. Application for exempt permit, Little Falls Fire Relief Association raffle approve. Application for exempt permit, Little Falls Rifle and Pistol Club raffle approve. Deferral of assessments, number 2017B, Public Improvement 376 approve. Economic Development Authority minutes, July 2017 receive. Fire Department report, August 2017 receive. Heritage Preservation Commission minutes, September 2017 receive. Hire Dave Stump, groundkeepers, golf course, authorize. Morrison County Attorney Prosecution report, July and August 2017 receive. Planning Commission minutes, August 2017 receive. Public Works Department report, August 2017 receive. Public Works Department report, August 2017 receive. Wastewater Treatment Facility report, August 2017 receive. Water Treatment Facility report, August 2017 receive. What's the wish of the council on the consent?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Mayor Zilka, a second by Councilmember Knopfla to approve the consent. Any discussion?
I just have a question. Item H, Dave Stump, it's actually on a former hire approval. I can't remember who, but I'm just wondering, at their pay grade, are they starting at the bottom all over again?
Yep. Yeah, so in this instance, Officer Stump retired,
Right.
now is just coming on as a civilian to the golf course. He starts at the 950 minimum schedule.
Okay.
And he has completed a separation of time with PERA, so he is not eligible for that additional compensation into PERA or subject or jeopardizes his receipt for PERA.
I didn't look into the steps and grades
There's a-
or anything like that. I'm just wondering if maybe some of these folks don't warrant starting off higher. They already know how the city works. There's a certain level of training and administrative stuff that doesn't need to be done with them, I'm guessing.
In terms of the groundskeeper, I would say no. He's fairly raw in that job. Basically it's just going to be filling out the employment paperwork, and he's had 20 years of service with here, so it was probably a long time since he filled out initial employment information. In this instance, and he doesn't have any request for further compensation. He mostly looked.
Like I said, this popped into my head when we had a previous hire that was an employee in a different role or something like that. And I mean, just there's going to be an efficiency gain, in this case for Rich, if he needs an errand run, something simple as benign as that. Go up to City Hall and talk to Lori about this, and, well, he knows who that is, it's not.
Oh, yeah. Knowing the people involved is certainly helpful. But I think in this instance, it's just a good opportunity. He has the time availability, and we certainly have the staffing needs this time of year at the golf course,
Certainly.
especially on the grounds, because a lot of our younger employees go back to their educations, and we have leaves that continue to fall for many months. And if the weather stays decent, people like to play, and we want to keep it open for as long as available.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure we're doing right by our people when they're not even asking for it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public hearings and lettings, repair HVAC system, Climate Makers, Carnegie Library. Greg?
If you recall, this last spring, we had Climate Makers do an analysis on the HVAC at the library. They came back with a number of suggested repairs to that system. There were a number of things that weren't working properly as designed just over the years. That was originally put in '99, I believe it was, and since then, things have broken and haven't necessarily been caught in terms of being broken. So they just kept going and propagating. We do have a list here from Climate Makers of what needs to be repaired at the library for the HVAC to work properly. It is in the amount of $10,370. I am asking the council to approve those repairs so that we can get that system working properly again. I know since they've calibrated a number of the systems, it's worked considerably better, but there are still a lot of items that are broken. If you look at like number 4, 6 out of the 9 thermostats are bad and need to be replaced. It's little things like that that's causing us issues later on if we don't take care of them and get them addressed.
What's the wish of the council?
Make a motion to award.
I'll second it.
I got a motion by Alderman Hercog, second by Councilmember Gushik, to award the bid to Climate Makers for $10,370. Any discussion?
I have a question. The air dryer and the filters were totally gone. Who have we had work on it that would have removed those, and do we need to ask them why?
They've been broken for quite some time. This past winter, actually, the air compressor, the system that we have at the library is a pneumatic, so everything's run by air. And the air compressor was broke this past winter, and so we had to replace it with a new air compressor. The air dryer that it was attached to hasn't been working apparently for quite some time. So when we swapped out the air compressors to get it running again, we noticed that wasn't working, and so that didn't get hooked up again, it just got removed. not knowing anything about pneumatic systems, it was never thought to replace that particular piece of it. So we ended up removing it and not replacing it, and it should have been replaced, but we didn't know that it wasn't broken until after the fact.
Mr. President,
Yep.
I'll speak. For years, we've been having trouble with that, and we've had different companies and local people come in there.
Yep.
They've never resolved it. I think it's a good idea to take the money and spend it wisely now and get it fixed once and for all.
Yep.
Just because we've been nickel-diming this, and it's cost us money. We had one time, some lines froze because the system wasn't working and it got cold, and that cost us a lot of money to repair that. Correct. So
Correct.
to get it fixed is probably a wise thing.
Correct. And I know even when we had the first proposal to do the analysis of the system, I learned more meeting with climate makers in the first 30 minutes, just kind of going over our system and what the proposal would look like to analyze it, than I've learned with our previous mechanical operators in the last 2 years that I've been here. So I've definitely learned a lot just with these guys in this short process that we've had so far, and it's clear that they know what they're talking about. They've worked with pneumatic systems in the past, and they'll get us back where we should be with that system.
Any other discussion?
Are we approving to complete all items at the same time for the $10,370?
That's my recommendation, yes.
Okay.
Motion's on the table. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Old business, additional roof repairs, Matt Hartung Construction, Pine Grove Zoo.
At the zoo this past summer, we re-roofed 3 of the buildings over there. When we sent out bids, we had an estimate on what it would take in terms of the quantity of materials. Unfortunately, 2 of the buildings were where the elk and where the llamas are at, so they're up quite a bit off of the ground, and so we had to take our best guess in terms of how much material it would take to re-roof those buildings. They did use about 500 square feet of additional roofing materials to repair those, and so Matt Hartung is asking for $1,500 to cover the cost overruns for that additional material that they used at the zoo.
What's the wish of the council?
I move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Lundberg, second by Councilmember Liljegren for approval. Any discussion?
Did we do any spot checking on the math? I mean, is $1,500 in line for the material?
For the material and the 500 square feet, it is in line with it, yeah. Yep. I just had my roof replaced 2 years ago, so, yeah.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Additional work, sidewalk obstruction, rim masonry.
As part of our project this summer, we filled in the staircase over on First Avenue Southeast by Lubert's Auto Parts, and then we replaced the sidewalk in that area. City staff did the demo on the stairway going down into the basement there, and then we brought in the fill to bring that back up to grade. Rim masonry was responsible for the sidewalk. They quoted us for a 4-inch sidewalk to be replaced in that area because the slopes in that area have to be very particular because it is ADA with the sidewalk. It's got to be at least, or I should say at least, maximum 2% within that area. And so when the guys filled it back in, they wanted to make sure that they didn't have too much material in there, so they didn't get the sidewalk too steep. So they left it a little bit low. By doing so, that created more concrete to be used in that space to get it to the proper grade that it needs to be. So they are asking for $708 in concrete to make up the difference from the 4-inch to the 5.5-inch, I think, that they ended up using. And then there was an extra $50 for blocking up the doorway down in the basement. I think it was a couple extra blocks that they had to put in there. All in all, it comes to $6,168 when you include his original bid on the improvements.
What's the wish of the council?
I move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Lundberg, second by Councilmember Hanson for approval. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Ordinance number 1, 7 series, amend city chapter 3, section 3.18, hours and days of sale. Consider. John?
Yes, this is the draft of the ordinance. This would bring back our 2 AM opening. I think the direction from the council after the last meeting was to make it available and mirror the allowable Minnesota state statute as much as possible, and this is what that ordinance does. It does not have a limitation on days, additionally, days that are limited other than what's limited in the Minnesota state statute. So it would be create an opportunity to have a license that would be eligible to be open till 2 AM. And we would, if the ordinance does pass, we would establish the appropriate fee schedule for that.
It's the wish of the council on ordinance number 1, 7 series.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Mayor Zilka, second by Councilmember Knopfler for approval. Any discussion?
I don't see a fee.
Whoa, that's introducing.
Or introduce?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
I was just
Like-
going to bring that up.
Yeah,
What's on here to consider, so yeah.
yeah, considered.
Okay,
Okay.
so it's been introduced by Mayor Zilka. Resolution 2017-56, proposed 2018 levy, adopt. Laurie?
John, do you want to?
Yep, I'll go through this. So you have in there the breakdown of the levy. Again, if you recall from the previous presentation in the work session, where some of those figures come up, our general fund, the dollar amount there is the amount that we totally need to operate the general fund, less what we collect in intergovernmental, LGA, other transfers that we have in from other enterprise funds, and fees and charges that we collect on behalf of the general fund. So that amount is $2,267,000. This is in our requested budget from staff. Notably, we do like to be very conservative in terms of costs and estimating high, because we know there's a period of 3 months between the time that we establish this and the time that we approve the final levies. We do anticipate those to come down. The Economic Development Authority is also an estimate. We are waiting for some figures from the county in terms of establishing the market rate. That's a fixed calculation based on the total market valuation in our county, or in our city, by the county assessor. So that number could certainly change. We did try to estimate that high. The fire relief is our contribution towards the Fire Relief Association's retirement fund. It helps to keep that fund in balance so that we aren't given. Fortunately, we have, because we've been making this contribution and the market's been doing a little bit better, we haven't had any forced contributions to that, because they do have an audit each year that the state auditor calculates, and if they are short in that fund, the cities are liable to bring that up to the levels to make it whole. And then the parking goes into the permanent improvement fund that we utilize to fix and repair and build parking lots in the city. The debt service, these are kind of the breakdowns of where we are with our improvement funds. We did have some refinancing, and we do have one that's a estimated cost, certainly at the end. We do anticipate these numbers to possibly come down as we analyze what's left in the fund, what's left to pay off those debt services. So there are some that are coming pretty close to term that we may have enough funds collected, either from previous years' early payoffs or assessments that are paid off early, to be able to potentially pay those off. So we could see that number come down. We do anticipate that this isn't going to exceed the $1.5 million that's in there. And then the referendum-based levy is for the library, and that's at $50,000, and that one's also coming very close to a term. If you recall from a few months ago, we talked about how our debt service levies are coming, a few of them are coming to a close. We've refinanced a lot of them to help save some money over time. So we're going to be able to see these numbers decreasing. Last year and the previous year, we were at about $1.6 million in dedicated levy towards debt service. So to see that number down to 1.5 is really good. Good look for us in terms of being able to either accommodate operating, increases to operating costs without raising levies to do so, or being able to take on more projects or other community assets that we want to build in Little Falls. So it's a good figure. The total, $3,948,750 would equate to about a 7.31% increase over the previous year's levy. That would be the set preliminary levy, and as I said, these numbers we tend to be very conservative in budgeting high towards what our allocated expenses are. We do see some of those numbers come down pretty significantly before we set the final levy. So when you see your truth in taxation statement, just know that there is a lot of potential for that tax bill to come down.
What's the wish of the council on Resolution 2017-56?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Gushek, second by Councilmember Hanson, to approve Resolution 2017-56. Any discussion?
Yeah, in past years, especially when it's election year, this becomes a very important thing because they have a way of putting it in the paper, making it sound like the council is approving a 7.3 this time. In the past, I think we've had it at 12%. I mean, and it's always come down. It's good for the public just to realize that we have to set this thing high because we don't know a few unforeseeable events that might happen here, and we can never raise it.
Yep.
But we can always lower it.
Yep, so again, a reminder, state statute-wise, a preliminary levy has to be set in September. At that point, it cannot be increased at your final levy when you do your truth and taxation hearing, usually in December, so that will be set that first week in December. I think that's a later motion, so.
Any other discussion?
I did want to point out, I did read in the paper that a couple of our neighboring communities have also set a increase in their preliminary levies.
For many years, we're always compared with peers because they had a 0% increase.
They were at 3.
Yeah, so they're finding themselves in need this year.
Any other discussion?
I still wish the state would let us get our numbers from the county before we had to do this, so we could really know what we're doing.
Be a little more accurate. Resolution, call the roll, please.
Hurkak?
Yes?
Gushik?
Yes.
Lundberg?
Yes.
Zilka?
Yes.
Hanfler?
Yes.
Liljegren?
Yes.
Knopfler?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Carries.
Resolution 2017-57, proposed 2018 Housing Redevelopment Authority levy. Lori?
Go ahead.
So again, very similar to the discussion in the EDA. This is a levy that is estimated and calculated based on the market value in our city set by the county assessor. We aren't able to receive that data at this time, so it's something that we typically set a little bit higher. For your information, I believe this was around $73,000 last year. So if the market values as a whole in the city go up, that number would increase. But likely, we need to set something as a preliminary amount, and as long as it's set higher than what we believe it will come in at, we won't exceed what we're statutorily limited to collect.
So wish of the council on Resolution 2017-57.
I'll make a motion to adopt.
Second.
Got a motion by Alderman Hurkak, second by Councilmember Knopfler to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, resolution, call the roll, please.
Gushik?
Yes.
Lundberg?
Yes.
Zilka?
Yes.
Hanfler?
Yes.
Liljegren?
Yes.
Knopfler?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Hurkak?
Yes.
Carries.
Resolution 2017-58, proposed 2018 budget. Adopt.
Again, more just our full figures that are incorporated into what we have in the general fund in terms of levy, what we anticipate in the special revenues. These are housing redevelopment, our Heritage Preservation Commission, the Parks and Rec, and Airport Commission, and then the enterprise are the intended revenue funds, self-generating revenue funds are waters, wastewater, garbage and recycling, stormwater, and golf course. These are preliminary estimates as well. We would anticipate that a lot of these are intended to come down, maybe less so in the special revenue fund, as those are pretty easy numbers and pretty predictable in terms of what those costs are going to be. But we do anticipate for certain the general revenue to be positively impacted and decrease.
What's the wish of the council?
I make a motion to adopt Resolution 2017-58.
Second it.
Got a motion by Mayor Zilka, second by Councilmember Gushik. Any discussion? Hearing none. Resolution, call a roll, please.
Lundberg.
Yes.
Zilka.
Yes.
Hanfler.
Yes.
Liljegren.
Yes.
Knopfler.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Hurkak.
Yes.
Gushik.
Yes.
Carries.
2018 Budget and Levy Informational Meeting, December 4th, 2017. Call.
This is the requirement to call a public hearing for truth and taxation. This is, it has to be held after 6 PM on a weekday. Fortunately, our meetings are after that, so you don't have to delay the start of that public hearing for this meeting. It just needs to be certified to the county so that they can put it into the truth and taxation statements that everybody receives, showing their potential, their preliminary, again, 7.31% preliminary levy increase, but the date of the hearing.
What's the wish of the council?
I'll make a motion to call the public meeting.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Hanson, second by Councilmember Knopfler. Call the meeting for December 4th, 2017. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Planning Commission recommendations, Resolution 2017-59, vacate portion of alley 13th Street Southwest, accept, fail.
Last Monday night, we held public hearings for a number of items that you see here. The first one on the agenda is proposal to vacate 9th Avenue Southwest. This is just west of 13th Street. If you look behind me by the cursor there, this is where the petition would be to vacate that stretch. The couple of items that the Planning Commission looked at discussing, and I'll preface this by saying there hasn't been any discussions both internally or externally about annexations or development, but the vacation of this right-of-way really stemmed into how do we see a lot of this property over here developing, as a large chunk of that land is owned by a single individual. If this was to ever develop, how would we get sewer and water and transportation into that parcel? After discussing it at the Planning Commission, they felt that it's prudent to keep the right-of-ways that we currently have, recognizing that there is some private land in between here and the development, that this is also served by that 9th Avenue corridor as well. So they did recommend denying the petition to vacate that section of 13th Avenue Southwest.
What's the wish of the council?
I'll make a motion to, are we accepting the recommendation, or?
Correct.
Accept the
Oh, we got to make the motion in a
recommendation to
positive.
deny.
So,
Council President, in this case, this is a resolution, so you almost have to make a motion to adopt the resolution and then
vote it down if you
vote
want.
it down if
Don't
that's
want
what
it.
you choose to do.
Some motion to,
Okay, so the resolution is to vacate.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So I'll make a motion
to approve resolution.
to accept the Planning Commission recommendation on Resolution 2017-59.
Second. So that's a motion to approve. Resolution 2017-59. And you got a second? Got a motion by Councilmember Hanson, second by Councilmember Liljegren to approve Resolution 2017-59. Any discussion?
Yes, I was at that meeting, and one of the things that turned me against this was we do need access. There is some private property within city limits, right on that west side of the city line there.
Yep.
That we would be totally cutting them off. And the other thing is the development, the potential development there. And the reason why the person wanted this vacated, he owns 2 little parcels, and if he got that alley, he could build a larger 4-plex versus a 3-plex.
Correct.
Well, it's not an alley. It's an actual.
alley. It's an alley that is not used
It's
right
an
now.
avenue.
I mean, avenue, sorry.
Yeah.
That's even more important.
Yeah.
And, but I just couldn't see it, the benefit to give him extra land to build a better property for himself versus cutting off a resident of the city and then potential development.
Yep.
I have a question.
Yep.
Because you worded it as passing the resolution,
Correct.
and Mr. Hanson said,
We can't make a
accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission, which would be to deny it, and yours sounded like we're passing it. Which are we?
A resolution has got to be in the positive
So if we vote,
motion, so you're going to want to vote no if you want to accept the recommendation from the Planning Commission.
thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
You know, and I
Wait
made a
a minute
motion,
here.
I'm even confused, and we've done this a few times, right? So the Planning Commission is recommending that we
Fail it.
don't vacate this.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, it shouldn't even be part of what you said earlier. You should have just basically said, I make a motion to recommend vacating this alley according to the petition and not bring up the Planning Commission at all.
Okay,
But
so.
you do know
So
that-
we're clear, I would like to amend my motion, right, to accept Resolution 2017-59.
And Council President, I believe Wayne would need to accept that as the seconder.
I'll second.
Can we quick vote?
Before you
Any
forget.
other discussion?
Yeah, I'm
So-
not saying no.
In voting yes, we're not letting them
Nope.
have,
You vote yes, you're letting them vacate
You
it.
vote yes, you vacate the alley. If you vote
Yes
no,
is
we
to
keep the alley.
vacate, no is to not vacate.
So, right, because the resolution is to vacate the public right-of-way.
Gotcha.
Zilka.
No.
Hanfler.
No.
Liljegren.
No.
Knopfler.
No.
Hanson.
No.
Hercog.
No.
Gushik.
No.
Lundberg.
No.
Bales.
Next, variance. Aaron and Becky Olson, construct addition and fence. Accept, deny.
Correct. There's, Mr. President, there's a couple of components to it here. One is the variance request to construct an addition on the north side of the property. I will get this a little bit smaller so that you can see. The applicant is proposing to extend the front of the house out roughly 5 feet by 17.5 feet. This is what they're proposing to do. They're looking at putting a bathroom and washer and dryer off to the front side of the house. Looking at a couple of pictures of the actual property here. This is looking at 2nd Street. Go to the next one here. Sorry. That was probably the best one. All right, so right out here is where they're proposing to put the addition onto the garage. 5th Avenue is going this direction. And then 2nd Street is going north-south here, if you can see the cursor there. The Planning Commission felt that this addition is too close to the right-of-way. Currently, there's a 30-foot setback requirement with our ordinance, and I'll show that to you up on Beacon here. This particular house was built in 1892, I believe. It was long before the ordinances came into effect, so it is a legal, non-conforming structure, meaning it does have to meet certain requirements in order to get a variance passed for those improvements. Right now, they're roughly 10 feet from the property line on the north side. On the east side over here, they're very close. I want to say it's within 5 feet. On the 2nd Street side, it's roughly about 35 feet, and then the rear yard back here, I believe, is 30 feet as well. So the parcel is not that big by no means, and I do understand where they're coming from in terms of the request for the addition, but unfortunately, there's couple ways that we can look at it. One is the old ordinance that we had in place. There were 5 different criteria, if you will, in the old ordinance to meet a need for an addition or alteration to a building. Unfortunately, on 4 of those, 4 out of the 5, they did not meet that. Now, today, technically, the new ordinance comes into effect, but again, even with the new ordinance, if we look at it like with the new language in there, there's a requirement that all buildings shall meet all setbacks. So unfortunately, with the request to build it within 5 feet of the right-of-way line, it still doesn't meet that request or that requirement for a variance. So they do have other options, to the west or even to the south, if they wanted to. I know the Planning Commission had felt that going to the north was just too close to the right-of-way line, being that there's technically a 30-foot setback requirement, and currently they're at 10. So the recommendation from the Planning Commission is to deny the building setback. If you want, we can take them all in one, or if you want me to break them up into 2 different pieces.
I'd rather take
2.
2? Okay, so I'll stop there.
Greg, now you said that they have 2 other options. Would either of those need a variance?
The west would not. There's parts of it on the west that would not. I'll try to bring up this image here real quick. Okay, so looking at the applicant's property here, so if they were to build over in this area, they would not need a variance.
That's not their house.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it is.
Is it?
It's before the fence.
Where's,
Yeah.
I was going to say, the fence
Before the
isn't there.
fence. So if they were to build in this area here, they would not need a variance. Just a building permit would apply for it. If they wanted to go along the entire front of the house, then they would need a variance, because the setback line goes to, if you see the left of this block, right here, right about here, the setback line is technically at for the 30 feet. So could they meet it? Yes. Would it look odd? Probably. So if they wanted to have a variance for the entire front of the house, then that would be a request that they could definitely go to the Planning Commission with.
But from the distance from the street on this side to the house, they could still add on and maintain that setback?
Correct. They would be able to meet the 5-foot setback on this
They would just need it because of the front.
From Second.
From Second Street, yep.
Second Street, okay.
Yep. So looking at it, it's about 35 feet is where they're currently offset from the right-of-way, and 30 is the setback requirement. So that width they would be able to meet, yes.
Greg, so if they came out to the west
Yep.
and built past that corner to the south,
They could. If you look,
even square it up with that little back,
yep, that would still be in the setback requirement. So this partition or this addition right here is really close to where the setback line is from the rear yard. And so if they wanted to build that all the way around, they definitely could.
How big is that lot?
75 by 80?
Tiny.
Yeah, it's half.
It's a half a lot.
There's 2
Yep.
jammed in there between the street and the alley.
Yep.
well, and if they, maybe we need a resolution before I start.
Need a motion?
My
Motion.
opinions. I'll make a,
Your turn.
I didn't want to make this.
I make a motion to accept the recommendation to deny the variance of Becky and Aaron Olson.
Isn't that the same problem we just had?
This is not a resolution,
Okay,
so we
okay.
don't have to call for the vote.
But yes means no.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Lundberg, second by Mayor Zilka, to accept the recommendation to deny. Any discussion?
Yeah, let's be clear on this one here, right? So affirmative, it's denied.
Correct.
Yes is a no.
Again, I was at that meeting, and I just couldn't see why, even in Olson's own words, they said Fifth is a very busy road. We want to maintain as much distance from that road for private individuals and that, and to push it closer, I see no sense in that, especially when you had a couple other options to go in a different direction. So I was one of those who voted against this.
Well, I've got two opinions. First of all, if there'd be an accident right there, that'd put him in even more danger. Second of all, if we'd approve this one, where do we stop?
Yep, right.
How many more? Every time someone comes forward, we're going to be building closer and closer to a very, very busy avenue. I think we're putting people at risk, and I don't think that's a good idea for us.
Plus, we're making a non-conforming situation more non-conforming when the intent was to keep it less non-conforming, why we put in the ordinances to begin with. So,
Here, in section 3, it's actually page 77 of our packet. It says, section 11.03B.9A requires that only one-time additions be allowed to buildings locating on non-conforming lots.
Correct.
The applicant's lot is non-conforming, and a previous addition has been completed on the property. So would we let them put another addition on? Because then they'd be in violation, right?
Correct. And there was, like I mentioned, there was 4 out of the 5 in that same section did not meet the requirement for a variance. And so those are all reasons why the Planning Commission is recommending denial of this particular variance request.
Oh, I see, okay. So they could still do it.
If the variance passes, they could, yes. But the Planning Commission is recommending denial of that tonight.
Right, but in the future, if they decide they want to do that, are they
for
going
that
to...
L, yes. If they wanted to do it, I'll unfreeze this here.
Why would they be allowed to put another one on there if they have already put one on, when it says they can't? I'm a little confused.
Well, that's where the change in the old ordinance and the new ordinance come into play.
Oh, this is the old ordinance.
That's the old ordinance, yep. The new ordinance is all buildings shall meet all setbacks. So if they were to put it in this area here, then they wouldn't need a variance and they would be in compliance with our current code.
Okay,
All they'd have to do is get a building permit and start.
Yes, yep.
okay.
I noticed you had like some renderings and stuff, so before voting, I just want to, have you looked at the floor plan? Are they, is it an undue burden on them to put it in a location other than where they want, based off, plumbing supply and stuff like that in the building?
The only floor plan that we have is this one here. I've been told that the living room is over in this area and the kitchen is here. So going back to that picture that we were at,
It's only the second floor.
or is it here? I've been told that this is where the living room is at and the kitchen is up in this area. In terms of the rest of the floor plan, I don't know what's in that area. I don't know. Just don't know.
Any other discussion? Motion on the table to deny. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries to deny. Now the fence.
Now the fence portion of it. I'll run through a couple of photographs that we have here. The request from the Olsons is to allow an after-the-fact variance on the fence. If you look, this is on 2nd Street at the corner of 5th Avenue. This is the 6-foot-high portion of the fence. Going around, you can see this is where the 4-foot-high on 5th Avenue side starts. Let's see here, this is a little bit better. Going from the 2nd Street here, you're looking southeast towards the Olson's property. This is the 6-foot fence, this is the 4-foot fence. There is no doubt that in the application, and I'll get to that in a little bit here, that they did request the fence that they did install. So they requested a 4-foot on the 5th Avenue side, a 6-foot on the 2nd Street side. The permit was approved. After it was installed, city staff noticed the error in terms of the height restriction there, because obviously the site triangle did not get installed at that point in time. Even though the permit was approved and they did what was right, we're recommending denial of the after-the-fact permit simply because of that site triangle in through here. If you look at one of these pictures, this one here, you can see it does get pretty crowded in there in terms of being able to see. Even though both have a stop sign, it's difficult to see what's around that corner, even going back to, well, that one's not going to show it. So we are recommending to deny that after-the-fact variance. Now, whether or not there's some other items that we can work with the Olsons on in terms of getting that removed, that's another item to discuss. I know there's really two parts to be able to come into compliance with the current ordinance the way it is. Where does he have that? Right here. So currently, the site triangle is 10 feet, and so it's 10 feet on either side. They've constructed a 4-foot fence on this side, a 6-foot fence on this side. So we'd have to get this either brought down to 2.5 feet in height so that you can still see over it if you're stopped over on 2nd Street. So if your vehicle is here, you can see through. Or remove this side of the fence and then put it at an angle, and it can go up to 6 feet in through here to still provide privacy. Those are really the two options to bring it into compliance with our code, either the current one today or the one that was when they installed it.
Wasn't the one when they installed it 25-foot site triangle though?
Yep. When they installed it, this would have been a 25-foot site triangle, so it would have went 25 feet back this way and 25 feet back this way, and then at an angle at that point. So the current code is much less restrictive than what it was previously. Doesn't take away the fact that it was an error in terms of our part of not noticing that was higher than it should be, but we do need to get that site triangle back in there because it is a hazard.
What's the wish of the council?
I make a motion to approve.
Approve denial?
Approve but deny it.
Approve their recommendation to deny
Okay,
it.
yeah, we'll approve their recommendation to deny the variance request.
But haven't we already given them?
Do I have a second for discussion?
Oh, sorry.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Bushek, second by Councilmember Knopfler, to accept the recommendation to deny. Discussion?
Now, that variance was in error,
Right.
or the permit that we gave them.
The permit was in error, correct. It was an oversight in terms of the height requirement on the fence. We do our best to go through them so that we don't run into these situations, but undoubtedly the property owners are still responsible to make sure that they comply with the city code.
You're saying we. Is it we or is it a contractor?
We review the permits.
We
but-
as in you?
We as in myself, Ben, David, whoever it is that
Okay.
reviews at the time. So
Yeah, but when you say we, that's different than Ben.
depends on what the permit is for. If
In my eyes,
if it's-
in my eyes.
If it's signs,
Right.
yes, we have Ben review those permits. I don't look at the sign component of it. If it's fences, it'll go through Ben, and then it'll come across my desk to see if there's any drainage easements or anything like that, and then it goes to the front to say the permit is ready. If it's a building addition, then it goes through all three of us to make sure there's, no items in there that are in violation. So, yes, it was an error that we made.
Okay.
So we're really at fault, the city is at fault for it like it is today? Is that what you're saying?
We made a mistake in terms of we did not catch that site triangle.
All right, so if we deny so that you're going to take it down or whatever, is the city going to pay for it?
That's a decision the council would make. I don't think it's out of line to request that, but that's ultimately a discussion that the council needs to make that decision.
I would say that if,
2-foot fence isn't very much privacy.
And
I would say that if we would ask them to take it down or have it taken down, that we, and I know this would have to be a separate motion and all, but I would suggest that they get us 2 bids of contractors to do it and that the city reimburse them because to me it's our error. We should be responsible for it. I'm sorry that it was wrong and it was done, but if because of that, 3 little kids on bikes get hit on the corner, are we liable for that because we approved a fence that caused it? So, we're kind of painted in the corner, but
So are you saying that we would pay to take out the corner and put the diagonal in?
But they didn't want that because that was cutting off more of their yard than they already had.
Well,
Either
that's-
that or a
It's
2-foot
about
fence, 2.5
A little bit
foot.
bigger than a sheet of plywood they'd be losing.
if they want to do a 2-foot fence, I'd say we do the 2-foot fence. If they want it all taken down, I'd say we take it down, and if they want the diagonal, I'd say that we get bids for the diagonal. I would
Well, they
say
can-
whatever it does to please the resident.
Well, they can
I
go
agree.
from
Is it-
6 feet on Second Street side to 4 feet on the Fifth Avenue side, right?
True. At the time, and this was the previous ordinance, they could only do 4 foot on the front side, which is the Fifth Avenue side. The new ordinance says they could do 6 foot on the Fifth Avenue now, if they wanted to. So, I mean, that's an option that they could have. So at this corner piece that we're talking about here, it could still be a 6-foot fence to provide privacy from vehicles coming from the west, going east. They wouldn't be able to see into the side yard or the front yard of their Olsons.
How do we word this? I think we're all kind of in agreement that we own part of this, right, for a
Well, I think
decision.
basically what we're going to have to do is first deny it, and then make a motion to have the city pay for it, or whatever we want to set up. I think that's how we're going
We
to
could
have
have
to do it.
staff meet with them to come
Yeah, I
up
was
with
going to
a
say, how do we do
solution
that? Because that part's not even an agenda item right now.
Right, so we
It shouldn't
don't,
be unless if they request it, down the road, if they request that we cover the costs for the mistake, that's the time we should actually bring that up, and maybe they don't want us to do it. Maybe, like suggested, they could go 2.5 foot high all the way to the corner, put that diagonal in there with a little gate, and still use that property and still have their privacy.
so we would act on the motion that we have here, and then direct staff to meet with the Olsons and try to come up with a plan on how to rectify the situation. And then
So
we'll
I
bring
would say,
that to a
because we don't
future.
have to have a motion to have.
Correct.
Staff
Count-
work with it.
Right.
Yeah, Council President, I would say that there is this risk of liability that because we have acted in error in approving something that we shouldn't have approved in the first place, and that it's there, that it puts us in a better position if we can work together with that property owner, and rather than have to litigate this as in terms of finding a solution by somebody else's decision. I think there is room in this instance that it is prudent to direct staff to find a resolution. So I would say the direction that we would prefer to see is whatever action it takes to bring the fence into compliance with the current ordinance. That it's, if it's tear down, bring it to a shorter height, or bring it outside of the site triangle in those realms, that it isn't your direction to do that, but whatever it takes to bring it into a certain compliance by a certain, I guess within a certain period of time would probably be the prudent strategy for staff to
Paid
to
for
work with
by the
Olsons.
city.
What's that?
Paid for by the city.
Just let staff discuss it with them, what they come to an agreement.
And in that discussion, that could be offered.
True.
That could be, should be.
I have a question, Greg, because this is, I think, within a year, it's the second time somebody's built a fence according to the drawing that they gave us and we approved. That wasn't correct. Can we do something different so we don't have this happen again next summer?
We can, we can always take steps to try to look at them a little bit closer.
I don't know if Ben's not looking at them real closely.
I don't know. We can definitely make sure we look at them closer to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, and I don't know his schedule. I'd just like to say I'm kind of disappointed he's not here. This is kind of a big deal.
He did ask if he was needed tonight. I told him not to. Technically, Ben is as an hourly individual, and so I'd rather have him spend more time on ordinances and comp plans and that type of stuff.
Obviously.
I have the answers to the questions. I mean, I was sat in all the meetings, and I've been briefed on all of this, so So I felt I could answer the questions enough for the council, so I made that decision.
Here's that fence been?
Roughly a year.
And was this brought to the city's attention by a complaint?
It was a complaint. Shortly after it was installed, there was a complaint that said it looks like it's too high to meet the site triangle requirements. We went out, looked at it, and indeed, it's like, yes, there is no site triangle at that corner, which started the process of sending the letter to the applicant to remove it, bring it into compliance. And then at that same point in time, we were looking at changing Chapter 11, and so that kind of got put on hold until Chapter 11 got resolved, and then now that it's been resolved, it's kind of started back up again.
So I drove by there today and I noticed that there are a bunch of lilacs planted next to the fence. Would some of those have to be removed to come out of that site triangle as well?
If they're within 2.5 and 10 feet, they would potentially be impacted as well, yes.
If they're in that triangle area?
They're at triangle, yep. Yep.
Any other discussion?
Well, the compliance issue is a big thing. There's also a telephone pole on that corner, if I remember right, which is an obstruction, so we should minimize them. But you know, there's other places in town where they're not conforming to this, and we go there and they remove hedges because they grew too tall or something, trees. And we're not grandfathering them in just because they were left there.
Correct.
You know, we're removing that stuff. This is a safety issue.
Right.
And
So like in the telephone pole situation, that's taller than the 10-foot component of it, so it doesn't conflict with the site triangle requirements, but there are other things like trees, if there's branches that branch out with leaves and stuff, that will impact the visibility of it. And we have had people remove trees and trim brush back and bushes and such, so we have taken those steps as well.
Any other discussion? Motion on the table to accept the recommendation to deny. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Petition to install stop sign, 8th Avenue Southwest and Lilac Lane.
Tonight, we are just receiving the petition to install a stop sign on 8th Avenue Southwest and Lilac Lane. From there, we will review the merits of it and report back to the council.
Switch to the council.
I'll make a motion to receive the petition.
Second.
A motion by Council Member Hanson, second by Mayor Zilka to receive. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reports? Anyone?
Mr. President, I have a couple things I'll report on very quickly. Active week last week. The latest was yesterday, I was at the open house for Camp Ripley, and they did have the changing of the guard from Colonel St. Saver to, I believe it was Milton, I think was his name, but, and it was also a celebration of veterans of the Korean War, and very emotional day for St. Saver, who I think has been a great asset to our community, no matter what anybody else says. I look at Camp Ripley as a community asset. You look at the amount of people that they employ there, the amount of people from outside of our state even that come out there and then come into Little Falls and do shopping and whatever. So the changing guard is always a scary time because you don't know. There was many years ago when Camp Ripley wasn't so open to the residents, and I think they've done a great job out there. They did make a point of that if you Google St. Saver, that there's like 14,000 and some hits about his accomplishments, and if they did like the adjutant generals and the generals and all the past camp commanders, it equals less than half of that. So he's a very busy man, brought a lot of great things out there. So it was a really nice day. Was at the grand opening of the Shoe Sensation. I can never say that. A lot of people there. I think that's a great addition to our community. Jeremy and I were talking about it, that he had been in there, and I think that's going to bring people in from small
I had a
towns
guest
all
buy
around
3
us.
pairs of shoes yesterday.
And I also stopped on my way home at the brewery just to see how that was working out. A lot of people there. Very nice-looking place. I think, once again, that's going to be a great addition to our community. It was an example of what community development does for our community. John and I are on the committee, and Kyle came to us, and we helped bridge the gap there a little bit. And so things done right, things working right. And then the last one, I was at the Centricare Kidney, which is at the hospital and through the back door, and it used to be upstairs, and now it's on the main floor. Pretty incredible, the amount of work they do. I got a tour by the guy that's the boss there, and I don't know, I think they have like 12 machines and for dialysis, and they've run 3 shifts of patients going through, and if we didn't have that here, our residents would have to go to either Brainerd or St. Cloud, and you look at somebody who's trying to work during this, and if you have to drive that extra hour and be on that machine 3.5 to 4 hours, that would affect your employment, so.
Well, that's why my parents moved to Little Falls, was for the kidney dialysis unit. Yep.
So it was, I even asked him, he said that he would take the council on a tour there if they were interested or anybody wanted to. It's incredible the amount of people that go through there in a year. So a lot of action going on in the city, a lot of exciting stuff going on. Thank you.
I'll second that as far as Colonel St. Sauber. I've known him since he was a major. I think he's probably been one of the best, in my eyes, camp commanders that we've had there over the years. I mean, I'm not saying he was the very best, but he certainly has done a great job with the city. Whatever he gets involved in, he does a great job. So I kudos to that.
Any other announcements?
Yes, after the planning commission meeting, there was a kind of an open to the public meeting about the trail going on the west side. It was pretty well received. There was a couple of people who were against it, and the reason why is they don't want their lose their front property, which it's hard to explain to people who have been maintaining lawns that the city actually, or the road right away actually is not their property, and they felt like they're losing property, but in fact they're not. But there were only a couple people against it for that reason, but generally a lot of the people were saying even if they were to lose or have to donate some of their own property to get this trail in, they were willing to do it. So it's nice to see that the public is in favor of it. And
Are you talking about the bike side or the motorized side?
the bike.
The bike side.
Yeah, the motorized side wouldn't be running on the west side.
That's proposed to go, the motorized side is proposed to go on the east side.
Yeah. And that's pretty much set now as far as the route.
A preliminary route is defined. It still needs to go through the DNR's review process yet. If they need any private easements or anything like that, that still needs to be worked out. But the option A, if you will call it, or the preferred option has been set, where it would come up 18th Street or the extension of 18th Street into and through Little Falls.
Any other announcements?
Mr. President, I just
Yep.
have one comment. I had spoken with a few of the council members, and I'd overheard some concerns also about four-wheelers in town. I'll be sending all of my staff to training with the Department of Natural Resources this week, and we'll be looking at addressing those issues, so.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just want to comment that with the adjournment to a closed session, we do intend to just bring it back in and adjourn the meeting. There won't be any action items taken after the closed session.
With that, we'll recess the closed city council meeting pursuant to Minnesota State Statute 13D.03 to discuss labor negotiation strategies.